Hello YouTube, welcome to another League of Legends guide. Today, we're covering jungle Xin Zhao.
To the arena!
Xin Zhao is a jungler with very high jungle sustain and fairly strong gank since he does have a pop-up from his Q and a slow and gap closer from his E. He's then got some very high early game damage and makes for a great duelist with all that damage and his high sustain. He's then even able to split push since he does have some pretty good damage, but also some AoE damage from his E ability. He then has percent health damage from his ultimate, which is also great for initiation since it does knock enemies away. Xin Zhao, however, can be kited rather easily. Sure, he does have a gap closer from his E which also slows, but after that, he has nothing to close a gap. His ultimate can then work bad with certain champions, things like Nunu and Fiddlesticks who want enemies to be more clumped up together. His ultimate will spread out the enemy team. He then also needs minions to escape. Sure, of course, he will take flash, but other than that, the only way to actually escape from an enemy champion is to use your E on an enemy minion to escape that way. Since we do have to build damage early on so our ganks are effective, we are then also very squishy early on, and of course are susceptible to CC. So for my masteries, I like to go 18 ferocity and 12 cunning, grabbing Fervor of Battle as my keystone mastery. Since we go for a lot of attack speed early on, Fervor of Battle definitely works the best if we are wanting to add some damage, but if we wanted some increased tankiness, then we could go 18 Resolve instead, picking up Strength of the Ages. Both are great options, but I definitely prefer getting Fervor of Battle for that extra damage. For my runes, I like to go attack damage reds, armor yellows, scaling magic resist blues, and attack speed quints. This is definitely my favorite setup, but some people do prefer getting attack speed reds and going for full on attack speed. Now, if you're somebody like me who does have limited rune pages, then I would go for this one I'm showing here, because you could use the same page for an AD carry. For my summoner spells, I like to just stick with the basics, Smite and Flash. Now, Smite is of course a requirement on a jungler, and it doesn't really need too much explanation. You do need it to clear through the jungle, secure Dragon and Baron, and to even buy your jungler item, so you don't have a choice but to take Smite. Flash, on the other hand, is easily the best summoner spell in the game. It's great when you use it to escape since your only way of escaping a gank is by using your Audacious Charge on an enemy minion if one is even nearby. You can then also use this ability to get off a much better crescent sweep on the enemy team in a team fight, so it'll be much more devastating. But with all that out of the way, let's look at our abilities, starting with our passive, Challenge. Xin Zhao's basic attacks and Audacious Charge challenge his target, removing 15% of their armor for 3 seconds and refreshing it with every attack, but only one target can be challenged at a time. So simply, in ganks and teamfights, this is great because reducing 15% of the target's armor is a great way to add more damage. Other than that, there's not too much else to say. As soon as you basic attack or Audacious Charge somebody in a gank, you will be doing a bit more damage. It's great. So now let's look at our Q ability, 3 Talon Strike. For the next 5 seconds, Xin Zhao's next 3 basic attacks each deal bonus physical damage and reduce his other abilities' cooldowns by 1 second. The third basic attack will then also knock up his target for 1 second, and this does also reset your auto attack timer. So this ability is of course great because you do deal a bit of extra damage, but you also knock up the target after 3 attacks, which is a great way to help stick onto them. Now, since this also does reduce your abilities cooldown by 1 second with every attack, usually you'll want to jump on them with your E, activate your W right away, and then start using your Q, so you reduce the cooldowns of your W and E. Since the cooldown goes down as we level this, and therefore we can also use our abilities more often, because we can reduce the cooldown by them more often as well, I do like to max this one first. Now, let's move on to our W, Battle Cry. For its passive, every 3rd hit heals Xin Zhao, and every 3rd attack is guaranteed to critically strike for bonus critical damage. When activated, Xin Zhao gains bonus attack speed for 5 seconds, which is up to 60%. So this ability is just fantastic. It is a built-in heal which keeps you sustained through the jungle, it does get modified critical strike damage, and you get more and more attack speed as you level the ability. On Xin Zhao, honestly, you can max any ability first, and this one is a pretty damn solid ability, but just not as good as our Q, but in my opinion better than our E, so we max this one second. As I said, when you do jump in with your E, make sure you activate your Battle Cry, so your 3 Talon Strike will reduce its cooldown. Now let's move on to our last basic ability, our E, Audacious Charge. Xin Zhao dashes to the target enemy, dealing magic damage to all nearby enemies and slowing them for 2 seconds, which has up to a 45% slow ratio. So, as the name would suggest, this is a charge and therefore our main way of engaging onto the enemy team. If you are looking for a little bit more burst in the early game on your ganks, you could max this one first, but it does have an AP ratio, so I'm generally not somebody that does that. It does, however, still have a really high win percentage like all of our other maxes, so it is viable and worth mentioning, but I like to generally max this one third. To use this ability, you want to jump into the enemy team. If you do have your ultimate, use that, follow up with your W, and then your Q. It's pretty damn simple to pull off. Well, let's finish off our abilities with our ultimate, Crescent Sweep. Xin Zhao sweeps around him, knocking back all non-challenged enemies, stunning them for 0.75 seconds, and dealing them physical damage, capped at 600 plus 100% bonus AD, against monsters. This does have a 100% bonus AD ratio and deals 15% of the target's current health as well. For 6 seconds, Xin Zhao also gains bonus armor and magic resistance for each champion hit by Crescent Sweep, and that's up to 25 per champion hit. So of course, to use this effectively, you want to make sure your high kill priority target is the one that's challenged, so they don't get knocked away. You can do this by simply auto-attacking them, or using our Audacious Charge on them. Then you want to knock back as many targets as possible, so you do get all that bonus armor and magic resist, but you'll also end up pushing them away from the fight at the same time. Now, as I mentioned on the cons, this can sometimes be a negative, because champions like Fiddlesticks or Kennen generally want to get as many people as possible in their ultimates. Usually you're not going to be a Fiddle because this is a jungle guide and Fiddle is mainly a jungler, but you could still piss off something like a Kennen, so make sure you use this effectively. The most common skill order is first maxing your ultimate, because of course it is your ultimate and it's OP as shit, but we then move on to our Q, 3 Talon Strike, we max that one first, then our W for all of its attack speed, bonus critical damage, and all that other good stuff, and then finally our E. It is a nice ability, but it is based off of AP. All 3 of your skills are insanely strong on Xin Zhao though, and honestly you can max them in any order and still have a really high win rate and have a good chance of carrying the game. This is just by far the most effective in my opinion. Xin Zhao is a champion with a very solid jungle clear and great jungle sustain, so honestly you can do whatever path you want in the jungle. I prefer going for a full clear, so I'll hit level 4, so if I am on the red side I'll start by killing the Krugs using Smite, killing the red buff, then Razorbeaks using my second Smite, then finally killing wolves, blue buff, smite again, and then kill the Gromp. If we're on the blue buff side, we do those in the opposite order, smiting in between each camp as well. When you're going in for a gank, try and save your Audacious Charge for when they either use their built-in escape or flash, if it is possible. If of course they have no built-in escape and you know they don't have flash available, then of course you can just open with that Audacious Charge. Either way, whenever you're at the enemy champion, you want to open up by activating both your Battle Cry and your 3 Talon Strike to quickly pop them up, and if they do try to escape, use Audacious Charge if you do have it available. Keep in mind that if you are level 6, of course you can also use that Crescent Sweep to deal more damage that way. You'll also want to make sure that you use the offensive smite from your Skirmisher's Saber to mark your enemy for 4 seconds. It's a great way to deal some extra true damage and also reduce the target's damage against you by 20%. This can sometimes be the difference in getting you that kill. On Xin Zhao, you'll want to get into the middle of a team fight with your Audacious Charge and then knock the enemy back and stun them with your Crescent Sweep. Keep in mind, if you are teamed with something like a Kennen or Fiddle, they won't want the enemy team scattered, so you may want to use your Crescent Sweep for after, even though it will do less damage. When you are in the middle of the fight and you have used your Crescent Sweep, you'll want to kill a high priority kill target like the AD carry or AP carry. Make sure you activate both your Battle Cry and 3 Talon Strike to do a lot of damage and knock them up in the process. Your Audacious Charge is also a pretty decent AoE slow, and you can use it to peel as well for your carries, so make sure you remember that and you do it if the situation does occur. Now let's look at a couple hard matchups, and first here we have Dr. Mundo. He's a hard matchup simply because you can't really kill him. He'll build very tanky and has a lot of built-in regeneration for both his passive and his ultimate. When you try to 1v1 him in jungle, he's just going to keep you slowed with his Infected Cleaver and wait for his team to rotate. He can kite you pretty much all day long. Against Mundo, you kinda just want to avoid 1v1s until later on when you do have a lot of items. Next here is Skarner. He's another champion you will struggle at killing, and he's very annoying for both you and your team. Since you are a melee carry jungler that relies on diving into teamfights, a good Skarner will pull you into his team with Impale and you'll accomplish absolutely nothing except for your own death. Trundle is then a champion who excels at dealing with tanky bruisers like Xin Zhao. He will be able to reduce your attack damage by a decent amount and can steal 40% of your armor and magic resist with his Subjugate. Obviously, this is going to make him an absolute powerhouse and you're going to die insanely quickly. Against a Trundle, just try to avoid him as much as possible. So let's finish this thing off with our item build, and we're going to start with a Hunter's Machete, Refillable Potion, and a Warding Totem. For our core build, we have the Skirmisher Saber enchanted with Blood Razor, Trinity Force, and a Dead Man's Plate. We'll do an absolute ton of damage with all the attack speed we have on the Blood Razor and Trinity Force, as well as the sheen the Trinity Force provides, and of course the bonus damage from the Blood Razor as well. The Dead Man's Plate is then just a nice way of adding some extra tankiness and some increased mobility. Now we do have two core alternatives as well. We do have the Warrior enchantment and a Blade of the Ruined King. If you're against a very squishy lineup, then you could opt for the Warrior instead since it would help you instantly burst them, but generally I like to stick with the Blood Razor. If you're against a very tanky lineup, you could get Blade of the Ruined King instead of Trinity Force for all the bonus damage it deals against tanky targets. But moving on, we first have Merc Boots against high CC and AP teams, Ninja Tabis against high AD, then there is the Berserker Greaves if we want more attack speed and just go full carry mode, and Boots of Swiftness for full on mobility. Now, since Xin Zhao is a tanky bruiser, he has a lot of items in the item pool. I'm just going to quickly cover each one. I'm not going to go into too much depth. I'm sure most of you know what they do anyways. But first here is the Yumu's Ghost Blade. It is great if we want to play more like an assassin and dive onto targets, as it does have a really nice active that gives movement speed. Ginsu's is then a great item as well. We have a lot of attack speed to stack it quickly, and it will deal a lot of extra damage. Titanic Hydra is a great way to add some AoE damage onto minion waves, and makes us a little bit tankier at the same time. Black Cleaver is an item I don't get too often because I do like to get the Trinity Force instead of it. I wouldn't get both the Trinity Force and a Black Cleaver, but if we do need to shred armor, it is a good option as well. Against high AP teams, we could get either a Wit's End or a Maw. Wit's End is great for its attack speed and on-hit damage, and Maw is great for the defensive shield it provides, as is the Sterex Gauge, which is our next item as well. This is a great item because it'll also increase our attack damage. For some defensive magic resist options, we have the Spirit Visage and the Banshee's Veil. Banshee's Veil is okay, but I do prefer the Spirit Visage because we do have healing on our W, and this will increase it by 25%. For armor options, we have Sunfire Cape to do some nice AoE burn damage, Randuinge, which is great against high crit teams, and Thornmail against high AD teams. We could then get a mix of magic resist and armor from both the Guardian Angel or the Zizirot Portal if we wanted to add some split push. So for our normal full build, we take our core, get Merc Treads, and then add that Spirit Visage for the increased healing, and a Guardian Angel to come back to life if we do die. It's a very solid build. We'll deal a ton of damage from the Blood Razor and Trinity Force we got at the beginning, but then we'll be very tanky from the items we took towards the end. If we instead needed to hard carry the game, we'd still take our core, but instead we would get Berserker Greaves, then get the Blade of the Ruined King, and a Maw as well. We won't be quite as tanky with this build, but we do have a lot more damage in it. But that concludes our Jungle Xin Zhao guide. I'd just like to thank you guys for watching, and if you guys did enjoy the video, you could like, and if you are new here, you could also subscribe. Please make sure you also check out the video description. We have a link to all of our social medias, and we do skin giveaways on our Twitter, so that of course is down in the video description. But thank you guys a ton again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next champion guide. Peace!
This feels good right here.